Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. For those that are watching for the first time, I'm Dr. Latifat, aka Money Fit MD. I'm a money and mindset coach for women physicians. Thank you for listening to me today and just being a part of my program. Thank you for being a part of this community, and I'm so grateful that I get to be a part of your time. So today I am going to be talking about this default patterns that we have and how it's keeping you stuck. Yes. So if you're listening or watching, I am recording this the week of April 24th, 2021. I am going to be starting my new group of women physicians that I am taking through my money program, and I'm super, super duper excited. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I am doing this program where I walk a group of women physicians through 8 weeks, within which we learn everything they need to know about money and the psychology of money that is actually the secret sauce to having money and knowing and having confidence about it. I am so excited about the women that I'm going to be working with. I'm excited that they've chosen to be a part of this, that I'm going to be a part of their journey. We start very soon. We start at the end of April 2021. So if you're listening and you think it's something you'd like to benefit from or you'd like to be a part of, send me a message, moneyfeedmd@gmail.com. If there's still room when I get that message, I would love to have you be a part of this. So I am excited and I wanted to share that with you guys. So here's the deal when it comes to our default patterns. What do I mean by default patterns? I'll give you an example. So I completed this 5-day money reboot recently where I had a group of women physicians who went through those 5 days of different money things with me. One of the amazing doctors that signed up and was there is Dr. Tara. She is a resident and she reached out to me and said, "Can I be a part of this as a resident?" I was so incredibly proud of her for doing this because, again, when I was a resident, I wasn't doing anything at all related to money. So the fact that she's actually doing this right now, she's like way, way, way ahead of the curve. And a lot of us that are attendings are so proud of her and we wish we had done the same. So, anyways, I was sharing a shout out to R in the group and I said, in honor of residency days, can we just share something that we've done or a pattern that we had or whatever it is we loved about residency? And one part that I shared with the group was that I mean, I'm no longer a resident, but there's a habit that I brought from residency days into my attending days, which is anytime I'm in the ICU on call or needing a reason to be in the ICU, I have to have a pudding. I have to have one of those little vanilla puddings. It's actually pretty funny and silly at the same time, but literally, I have to, not like I have to do it, but I choose to do it every single time. But the thing is, I wasn't really aware of it. It was a default thing where if I'm in the ICU, I do my procedure and I'm looking for a vanilla pudding. I know I never buy those things at home, but whenever I'm at the hospital, for some reason, it seems like a great idea, right? So it's become such a default part of my brain that I didn't even realize I was doing it until one day, one of my fabulous friends, who is a weight loss coach, Dr. Natanya Brown, she's a weight loss coach for dentists. So if you're a dentist and you're listening to this, hit her up. It's drnatanya.com. Check her out. But anyways, one day she kind of called me out on it and said, it's okay if you want to have your pudding. However, stop acting like you have no control over it. Like, do you want to have a pudding or do you want to be the person that does not eat a pudding every time you're on call, right? Especially if you have like remorse about it later. And I'm like, I didn't even realize I was doing that. I did it. I was just going through my normal like my default patterns. So, I mean, so that's kind of like what came to my mind when I was doing this recording or when I was thinking about what I was going to talk to you guys about today is we have this default patterns, default habits that we don't necessarily think about, and it shows up in our lives in different ways. I mean, pudding is like a little silly example, but I've done the same thing with like bagels for breakfast when I'm on call. I normally don't have breakfast, but that can be whatever it is for you. But the bottom line is It's not a problem per se, unless the result you're creating is not something you want, right? So if after doing this stuff, you feel bad about it, you feel unsuccessful, you're spending money in ways you were not planning on, then we need to get from this efficient default pathways that your brain has already created and try to move you to a different pathway that is actually more optimal and will create the result that you want. Are you with me so far? So I will give you specific examples of how default patterns can show up in our lives. I have so many examples for you guys, by the way, but I will save them for another day. I have so many, so many default patterns. But when it comes to money, so I'm going to talk about like spending. Spending is one that comes up a lot, right? So you're someone that you don't even think about it. You're like, every day I wake up in the morning and this is what I order. Every day on my way back from work, this is what I order. This is like my thing that I do. Every my Amazon, whatever, anytime I want this, I just go in there and like type it out and like get it. Anytime any kid like even remotely thinks about wanting something, I just go ahead. So like those default things that you do without actually pausing to think about it. Or it could be like savings. For example, maybe you've been waiting forever thinking, I would like to have more savings, but your default pathway is you're not actually saving money, whether that's because you're hoping you have something left at the end of the month instead of like actually proactively putting money away and spending what's left. Or another example is like investment. So maybe your default pathway is think, I don't know how to invest. And every time, I'm not the kind of person that invests because I don't know how to. I'm not the kind of person that can buy properties because I don't know how to. Like that default pathway, that default automatic response that comes up for you anytime that thing comes to play, that's your default pathway. Okay. Another example is if you're someone that you've thought about ways of improving yourself, whether that's a course, a certification, training, something, but your default is to always say no, even though you know that that thing is going to create value for you, then that sort of becomes a problem. Does that make sense to you guys? So your default pathway is not just, oh, I do this, because honestly, habits can actually be good for you if it's creating the result that you want. However, if that default pattern is creating an outcome that you don't want, then that is when there is a problem. And again, this doesn't just affect finances, it affects so many different things, as I've shared my little pudding example, right? So then the question is, how can you change the course? If you're like, okay, I get it. There are certain things I do, but that's just who I am. I don't do this. I don't do that, right? We start to give ourselves labels. I don't go there. I don't save like that. I don't spend like that. I like freestyling. We start to like give ourselves labels. But again, I want you to ask yourself, what results are you trying to create? Because ultimately, you cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That's insanity, right? Doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So if you want to create a different outcome, if you want to create a different future, then you have to go away from that default pattern that you normally have. Okay. So I'm going to be sharing 3 things today that you can have in mind that will help you deviate from this default unintentional pathway that you have. So number 1 is being aware. So what do I mean by that? It's so easy because remember, those things you're doing, they're automatic. But when you're aware, you almost you sort of take the unconscious and you make it conscious, right? Because it's normal for your brain to want to be efficient when it comes to conserving its energy. So no doubt that there's a reason why you're doing the things that you normally would do every single day and do it over and over and over again. But that awareness piece is super important because we want to start paying attention and being aware, because now again, you're pulling it from the unconscious and making it conscious. And it's hard to change things that are unconscious because you don't even know they're there. But once you now becomes conscious, now you now have a place to work with. You have something to work with that you can now take and change it if it's going to create a different result for you. Okay. And then number 2 is what I like, which is thinking to yourself, will I be happy with this choice in 3 to 6 months, or will I wish I had done something different? Okay. Thinking into the future, 3 to 6 months from now, am I going to be happy that I spent this way? Am I going to be happy that I did not save intentionally? Am I going to be happy that I didn't make this investment? And the goal is not to judge yourself or feel bad for a decision you made. The goal is for you to have a starting point where you can now start to improve, right? And the goal is never perfection. It's always progress over perfection. So you're not going to get this every single time. You're not going to be able to do this every single time. However, if 100% of the time you were relying on this default pathway, and now with practice, you're doing 50% of the time, that's progress, significant progress, right? And then number three is choosing to be someone that can make a different decision. So I was on a podcast recently with Dr. Una of Entre MD. Shout out to her. She has a fabulous business coaching podcast. If you want to listen to it and check out her program, she's amazing. But we were talking about the importance of micro decisions, right? So who I am or who I say I am is the result of micro decisions that I'm making. If I like who I am based on the results I'm creating, then hallelujah, I'm good. However, if I don't like that, I can actually change it by making a different micro decision, right? Different micro decision. So if you're someone that like, well, I'm normally not a saver, sure, whatever, use whatever labels you want, but just remember that that label is the result of micro decisions that you're making. And the way to change it is to make a different micro decision. So if you normally don't save any money at all, you can literally choose to say, starting now, I'm going to be saving $1,000 a month. And I'm going to put that away first before any other expenses comes out of my account, right? So that is doing something different today that you normally wouldn't do before. The other one is if you're like, okay, there's a program that I want to be a part of that I know for sure is most likely going to help give me a different result at the end of this. I am committing to be someone that says yes to this particular thing. I'll share a story with you guys later about how my sister used to label me as the girl that turned every potential boyfriend into a friend. It's actually funny. It was like a completely default automated process. It was amazing and it worked until I decided not to let it work anymore. And then I changed it, right? So the point is this. What sorry, I digress. Micro decisions are important. You have the power to change based on those micro decisions that you're making. Okay. So to summarize, your default patterns are not good, they're not bad. The question is, do you like the results that you're creating? If you don't like the results that you're creating, then it's time to change and create new neural pathways. That's what this is about. And the way you do that is by practice, practice, practice. Again, awareness is number one. Number two, 3 to 6 months from now, are you going to be glad you made this decision? And then the last but not the least is choosing to be someone that can make a different choice through the power of micro decisions. All right. I hope you guys have liked this episode so far. It's been great recording it. I would like to hear, what did you learn from this? Did it help you in any way? Any aha moments? And of course, like always, if you loved this episode, if you enjoyed it, I want you to share it with at least one woman physician girlfriend, because remember, sharing is caring. And feel free to tag me on Facebook, on Instagram at MoneyFitMD. Thank you guys for watching and listening. I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.